The rain came down hard that evening, splashing onto the tarmac of a private airstrip outside Chicago. It was the kind of storm that made people stay indoors, huddled under blankets or watching TV. But not Daniel Hartley. He stood outside his luxury jet, soaked to the bone despite his expensive coat, staring at the sleek aircraft as if willing it to start working again. His face was tense, frustration etched into every line. Daniel wasn't used to being stuck anywhere, let alone stranded, at an airstrip because of mechanical issues. His schedule was always packed. Meetings, conferences, charity events, and delays were simply unacceptable. This time, however, there was nothing he could do. The jet had broken down during an emergency landing caused by severe weather conditions. No mechanic was available until morning, and Daniel knew waiting meant losing valuable hours. As he paced back and forth, muttering under his breath, something caught his eye, a figure huddled under a torn tarp nearby. At first glance, it looked like just another part of the scenery, but then the figure moved slightly, pulling the tarp tighter around itself. Curiosity got the better of Daniel, and he walked over, shielding his eyes from the rain. Underneath, the tarp lay a man who seemed to have seen better days. His clothes were dirty and patched up, his hair unkempt, and his face covered in stubble. Despite his appearance, there was something about him that drew Daniel's attention. Maybe it was the way he held himself, even in such dire circumstances, with a quiet dignity that suggested he hadn't always lived this way. "Hey," Daniel called out cautiously, unsure how to approach someone like this. "Are you okay?" The older man stirred, blinking against the raindrops that dripped from the edge of the tarp. When he saw Daniel standing there, he didn't flinch or panic. Instead, he gave a small nod and pushed himself up into a sitting position. "I'm fine," he said, his voice rough but steady. "Just trying to keep dry." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Daniel gestured toward the jet behind him. "That's my plane over there. It broke down and I don't know what to do. Do you, He hesitated, feeling awkward asking a stranger for help, especially one who looked like they barely had enough to survive. "Do you know anything about planes?" The question hung in the air between them. For a second, Daniel thought the man would laugh or tell him to leave. But instead, the man tilted his head slightly, studying the jet through the sheets of rain. "What's wrong with it?" he asked after a pause. "I don't know," Daniel admitted, running a hand through his wet hair. "Something about the engine, I think. The pilot said we need a mechanic, but no one's coming until tomorrow." The man nodded slowly as though processing the information. Then, without another word, he stood up and began walking toward the jet. Daniel followed, unsure whether to stop him or let him continue. When they reached the aircraft, the man stepped closer, peering at the engines with keen interest. Daniel watched silently, unsure what to expect. After a few minutes, the man turned to him. "You got any tools around here?" "Tools? Yeah, I think so," Daniel replied, pointing toward the hangar. "There's a toolbox inside." The man nodded and headed toward the hangar, moving with surprising confidence despite his ragged appearance. Daniel trailed behind, still skeptical but intrigued. Inside the hangar, the man quickly located the toolbox and rummaged through it, selecting a few items before heading back to the jet. "What's your name?" Daniel asked suddenly, realizing he didn't even know who this person was. "Ethan," the man replied briefly, already focusing on the task at hand. "Well, Ethan, I'm Daniel, and thank you. For helping, I mean." Ethan shrugged, as if helping a billionaire fix his jet was no big deal. "Don't mention it." Over the next hour, Ethan worked methodically, checking wires, inspecting parts, and testing connections. Daniel hovered nearby, occasionally offering assistance when asked. Though he didn't understand much of what Ethan was doing, he couldn't help but admire the man's skill and focus. Finally, Ethan straightened up, wiping grease-stained hands on his already dirty pants. "It's fixed," he announced simply. Daniel blinked, surprised. "Really? Just like that?" "Yeah, just a faulty fuel pump. Lucky for you, I found some spare parts lying around." Relief washed over Daniel and he extended a hand. "Ethan, I don't know how to thank you. How much do I owe you?" But Ethan shook his head firmly. "Nothing. Don't worry about it." Daniel frowned, taken aback. "Are you sure? I can pay you whatever you want." "No thanks," Ethan said, stepping back. "I did it because I could, that's all." Before Daniel could argue further, Ethan turned and started walking away, disappearing into the rain as quickly as he'd appeared. Watching him go, Daniel felt a strange mixed nothing. The next morning, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about Ethan. He replayed the events of the previous night in his mind. The rain, the broken jet, and the mysterious homeless man who had fixed it without asking for anything in return. It wasn't just Ethan's skill that stuck with him. It was the quiet confidence and humility he carried despite his circumstances. Daniel decided to track Ethan down. After making a few calls, he discovered that Ethan often stayed near the same airstrip where they'd met. Armed with determination and a car full of supplies, he drove back to the location later that day. Sure enough, Ethan was there, sitting, under the tattered tarp staring out at the horizon. "Hey!" Daniel called out as he approached. Ethan looked up, surprised to see the billionaire again. "What are you doing here?" "I came to thank you properly," Daniel said, holding up a bag filled with food and fresh clothing, "and maybe talk." Ethan hesitated but nodded. "All right, thanks." They sat together under the tarp, sharing sandwiches and bottled water. As they ate, Daniel asked questions about Ethan's life. Slowly, Ethan opened up. He explained how he used to work as an aviation technician before everything fell apart. A false accusation of embezzlement cost him his job, his savings, and eventually his home. His wife left him, taking their young daughter with her, and he ended up living on the streets. "That must have been tough," Daniel said softly, shaking his head. "But your skills, it's clear you're good at what you do." Ethan shrugged. "Skills don't mean much when no one will hire you." Daniel leaned forward, his expression serious. "Listen, I have an idea. How would you feel about coming to work for me? You could be the head mechanic for my fleet of jets." Ethan stared at him, stunned. "You're joking, right?" "No, I'm not," Daniel replied firmly. "I saw how capable you are last night, and honestly, I think you deserve a second chance." For a long moment, Ethan didn't say anything. The offer sounded too good to be true, but something in Daniel's tone told him it was genuine. Finally, he nodded. "Okay, I'll give it a try." A week later, Ethan found himself standing in front of a modest apartment provided by Daniel. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean and comfortable, a far cry from the cold, damp tarp he'd been sleeping under. For the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of hope. His first day at work was nerve-wracking. The hangar buzzed with activity, and Ethan couldn't help feeling out of place among the polished professionals. But Daniel introduced him warmly to the team, emphasizing Ethan's expertise and experience. "You won't regret this," Daniel assured everyone. "Ethan knows more about these jets than most people twice his age." At first, some of the mechanics were skeptical. Ryan, a senior mechanic with years of experience, seemed particularly dismissive. He barely acknowledged Ethan during their initial interactions, treating him like an outsider, but Ethan didn't let it bother him. Instead, he threw himself into his work, fixing problems others had struggled with and streamlining processes to make maintenance faster and more efficient. Within weeks, his talent earned the respect of nearly everyone on the team, except Ryan. Meanwhile, Ethan began trying to reconnect with his daughter, Lily. She was now a college student studying engineering, just like her father once dreamed of doing. At first, she was hesitant to speak with him. Years of bitterness and unanswered questions had built walls between them. Ethan wrote letters, sent messages, and even visited her campus, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. One afternoon, as she walked out of a lecture hall, she spotted him waiting nearby. "Dad?" she asked cautiously, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Hi, Lily," Ethan said, smiling nervously. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted to see you, to explain." Lily crossed her arms, her expression guarded. "Explain what? Why you disappeared?" Why Mom had to raise me alone. Ethan sighed, lowering his gaze. I messed up, Lily. I lost everything because of mistakes, not mine, but ones people blamed on me. I should have fought harder to stay in your life. I'm sorry. She studied him for a moment, searching his face for sincerity. Then, reluctantly, she nodded. We can talk, but don't expect things to go back to normal overnight. That's fair, Ethan replied, relief washing over him. Thank you. Back at work, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Ryan continued to resent Ethan's presence, especially as Daniel praised him publicly for his contributions. One evening, after most of the team had left, Ryan confronted Ethan in the hangar. You think you're special, huh? Ryan sneered, leaning against a toolbox. Just waltzing in here and stealing the spotlight. I'm not trying to steal anything, Ethan replied calmly, keeping his focus on the engine he was repairing. I'm just doing my job. Your job? Ryan laughed bitterly. You're lucky Daniel likes you. Otherwise, no one would have given you a second look. Ethan turned to face him, his jaw tightening. Look, I get it. You don't trust me. But I'm not here to cause trouble. All I want is to prove myself. Ryan snorted. Prove yourself? Fine. Let's see how long you last. With that, Ryan stormed off, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts. Though unsettled, Ethan refused to let Ryan's hostility shake him. He reminded himself why he was here. To rebuild his life and provide for Lily. That resolve kept him grounded, even as whispers of sabotage began circulating around the hangar. One night, while working late, Ethan noticed strange marks on the wiring of one of Daniel's jets. At first glance, it looked like wear and tear, but upon closer inspection, he realized someone had tampered with it deliberately. If left unchecked, the damage could have caused a catastrophic failure mid-flight. Heart pounding, Ethan worked through the night to repair the issue. By dawn, the jet was safe again. Exhausted but relieved, he reported the incident to Daniel, who immediately launched an investigation. As the days passed, Ethan's suspicions grew stronger. Whoever was behind the sabotage clearly wanted him gone, but he wasn't about to back down. With Daniel's support and his own determination, Ethan prepared to uncover the truth and protect the future he'd only just begun to rebuild. Ethan stared at the sabotaged wiring in disbelief. Someone had deliberately tampered with the jet's electrical system, cutting wires and loosening connections to create a deadly malfunction mid-flight. If he hadn't caught it in time, Daniel could have been killed, or worse, dozens of passengers might have lost their lives. The realization sent chills down Ethan's spine. He worked quickly, repairing the damage before anyone else noticed. But as he tightened the final bolt, his mind raced. Who would do something like this? And why? Was it meant to harm Daniel? Or was it aimed at him personally? When morning came, Ethan went straight to Daniel's office. The billionaire looked up from his desk, surprised by the early visit. Ethan, what's wrong? I found something last night, Ethan began, his voice low and serious. Someone sabotaged one of your jets. If I hadn't fixed it, there could have been an accident. Daniel's face darkened. Sabotage? Are you sure? Positive, Ethan replied firmly. It wasn't wear and tear, it was deliberate. Someone cut wires and messed with the connections. Daniel leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. This isn't good. Do you have any idea who might be behind it? Ethan hesitated. He didn't want to accuse anyone without proof, but Ryan's behavior had raised red flags. I'm not sure yet, but I think we should keep an eye on Ryan. He's been acting strange lately. Daniel nodded thoughtfully. All right, let's handle this carefully. I'll talk to security and start an investigation. In the meantime, don't say anything to anyone, not even the team. Over the next few days, tensions in the hangar reached a boiling point. Ethan tried to stay focused on his work, but he couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him. Tools went missing, equipment malfunctioned, and anonymous notes appeared on his desk, warning him to quit while he still could. One afternoon, Ethan confronted Ryan during a quiet moment in the hangar. What's going on, Ryan? He demanded, stepping closer. You've got a problem with me, fine, but messing with the Jets? That's crossing a line. Ryan smirked, leaning casually against a toolbox. Don't know what you're talking about, Ethan. Maybe you're just paranoid. I'm not paranoid. Ethan shot back, his voice rising. Someone sabotaged that jet and I think you're involved. Ryan's smile faded, replaced by a cold glare. Careful, Ethan. Accusing me won't end well for you. Before Ethan could respond, Daniel walked in, breaking the tension. Everything okay here? Both men turned to face him. Just clearing the air, Ryan said smoothly, grabbing a wrench and walking away. Ethan sighed, shaking his head. He's hiding something, Daniel. I know it. I believe you, Daniel replied, but until we have proof, we need to tread carefully. Amid the chaos at work, Ethan continued reaching out to Lily. Their conversations were awkward at first, filled with long pauses and unanswered questions. But slowly they began to reconnect. One evening, Ethan invited her to dinner at a small diner near her campus. Lily arrived looking nervous but curious. As they sat down across from each other, Ethan smiled warmly. Thanks for coming, Lily. It means a lot. She nodded, fidgeting with her napkin. I wanted to hear more about everything. About you. Ethan took a deep breath. I know I haven't been there for you and I can't change the past. But I'm trying to make things right now. I've got a job, a place to live, I'm building a new life, and I want you to be part of it. Lily studied him, her expression softening. Why now? After all these years? Because I realized I was letting fear hold me back, Ethan admitted. Fear of failing again, fear of being rejected. But seeing you reminded me of what really matters. Family matters. Tears welled up in Lily's eyes, and she reached across the table to take his hand. I missed you, Dad. Those 3 words hit Ethan like a wave, filling him with both joy and guilt. I missed you too, sweetheart. More than you'll ever know. While Ethan worked to rebuild his relationship with Lily, Daniel introduced him to his sister, Claire. She ran a foundation dedicated to helping people overcome homelessness and rebuild their lives. When Daniel explained Ethan's story, Claire was immediately intrigued. You've been through so much, Claire said during their first meeting. And look at you now. You're turning things around. Have you ever thought about sharing your story publicly, inspiring others who are struggling? Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I don't know. I'm not really the public speaking type. You don't have to be perfect, Claire reassured him. Just honest. People need to see that second chances are possible, no matter how far they've fallen. Ethan considered her words. He knew how hard it had been to claw his way back from rock bottom. If sharing his story could help even one person, maybe it would be worth it. All right, he said finally. I'll give it a try. As preparations began for Ethan's public appearance, the sabotage continued. One night, Ethan stayed late to finish inspecting a jet scheduled for a high-profile flight the next morning. As he worked, he heard footsteps echoing through the empty hangar. Who's there? He called out, grabbing a nearby wrench. No one answered. Heart pounding, Ethan moved cautiously toward the sound. Suddenly, a shadow darted past him, disappearing into the darkness. Cursing under his breath, Ethan chased after it, but whoever it was vanished before he could catch them. Frustrated and exhausted, Ethan returned to the jet. Just as he was about to leave, he spotted a folder tucked under the pilot's seat. Pulling it out, he flipped it open and froze. Inside were documents linking Ryan to illegal activities, smuggling high-value goods aboard Daniel's jets. Ethan's hands trembled as he read through the papers. Now he understood why Ryan had been so desperate to get rid of him. Sabotaging the jets was just a distraction, a way to cover his tracks while continuing his criminal operation. The next morning, Ethan showed the evidence to Daniel. Together, they contacted the authorities and launched a full investigation. Ryan was arrested later that day, his smug demeanor crumbling under questioning. Though relieved, Ethan knew the battle wasn't over. The scandal threatened to tarnish. Daniel's reputation and media outlets began digging into Ethan's past, dredging up old accusations and casting doubt on his character. Feeling responsible for dragging Daniel into the mess, Ethan considered quitting, but Claire convinced him to stay, reminding him that running away wouldn't solve anything. Together, they devised a plan to clear Ethan's name once and for all, and turn his struggles into a message of hope for others. For the first time in years, Ethan felt truly alive. Despite the challenges ahead, he knew he wasn't alone. With Lily by his side, Daniel's support, and Claire's guidance, he was ready to face whatever came next. The days following Ryan's arrest were a whirlwind for Ethan. News of the sabotage and smuggling scandal spread quickly, making headlines across the country. Reporters swarmed Daniel's company, eager to uncover every detail. While Ryan was exposed as the mastermind behind the illegal activities, the media turned its attention to Ethan next. Old accusations resurfaced, stories about how Ethan had supposedly embezzled funds years ago, leading to his downfall. Headlines painted him as untrustworthy, questioning whether he truly deserved his new role at Daniel's company. Some even suggested he might be involved in Ryan's schemes, despite all evidence pointing otherwise. Ethan felt the weight of the scrutiny pressing down on him. For a moment, he considered stepping away from everything, quitting his job, disappearing again. But then he remembered Claire's words. Running away wouldn't solve anything. Instead, he decided to fight back, not just for himself, but for others who had been falsely accused like him. Claire helped Ethan prepare for what came next. She encouraged him to dig deeper into his past, reaching out to former colleagues and friends who could vouch for his integrity. Together, they tracked down key witnesses and unearthed documents proving that the embezzlement charges against Ethan had been fabricated by a corrupt manager seeking revenge. With this new evidence, Ethan filed a lawsuit to clear his name officially. The case went to trial, drawing widespread attention. On the day of the hearing, Ethan stood confidently at the podium, ready to tell his story to the world. As Ethan spoke, his voice steady and clear, the courtroom fell silent. He began by recounting the events that led to his downfall, the false accusations, the loss of his job and home, and the painful separation from his family. He described how hard it had been to survive on the streets, battling hunger, loneliness, and despair. "I didn't ask for pity," Ethan continued, glancing at the jury. "All I wanted was a fair chance to prove myself. But instead, my life was destroyed because someone powerful decided I was expendable." He held up the folder of evidence, presenting emails and testimonies from former co-workers that proved his innocence. One by one, witnesses took the stand, confirming Ethan's version of events. They spoke of his dedication, honesty, and skill, painting a picture of a man unjustly punished. Lily sat in the front row, listening intently. Her eyes welled with tears as she watched her father speak with such courage. It was the first time she fully understood the depth of his struggles and the strength it took for him to rise above them. Daniel also attended the trial, sitting quietly near the back. Though he wasn't directly involved, his presence showed unwavering support for Ethan. When called to testify, he praised Ethan's work ethic and character, emphasizing how much he valued him as an employee and friend. By the end of the trial, there was no doubt in anyone's mind. Ethan was innocent. The judge ruled in his favor, clearing his name once and for all. As the verdict was announced, applause erupted in the courtroom. Ethan exhaled deeply, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders, one he hadn't realized he'd been carrying for so long. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded Ethan, firing questions about his plans moving forward. Rather than avoiding them, Ethan stepped forward, addressing the crowd calmly. "This isn't just about me," he said, his voice firm but kind. "There are countless people out there facing similar injustices, people who've lost everything because of lies or corruption. My hope is that my story can inspire them to keep fighting, to believe in themselves, and to never give up." His words resonated deeply, sparking conversations nationwide. News outlets highlighted his journey, turning him into an unlikely hero. Social media buzzed with messages of support, and strangers reached out to share their own stories of hardship and resilience. Claire wasted no time capitalizing on the momentum. She invited Ethan to speak at several events hosted by her foundation, where he shared his experiences with audiences eager to learn. At first, public speaking made him nervous, but with each appearance he grew more confident. Watching him connect with others reminded Lily of the father she used to admire, and brought them even closer together. Back at work, Ethan returned to his duties with renewed purpose. The scandal had shaken the company, but under Daniel's leadership they rebuilt trust with clients and employees alike. Ethan played a key role in implementing stricter safety protocols and transparency measures, ensuring nothing like Ryan's scheme could happen again. His relationship with the team improved significantly. Without Ryan's hostility hanging over them, the mechanics worked together more effectively, respecting Ethan's expertise and leadership. Even those who had doubted him initially now saw him as a vital part of the operation. One evening, after a particularly successful day at the hangar, Daniel approached Ethan with a broad smile. "You've done amazing work, Ethan. Honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better person to lead this team." "Thanks, Daniel," Ethan replied, genuinely touched. "I owe you a lot for giving me this chance." "You earned it," Daniel said firmly. "And I'm not done yet. I've got another idea. A big one." Curious, Ethan raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" Daniel gestured toward the jets lined up outside. "We're designing a new model, incorporating some of your innovations. I want you to oversee the entire project. Think you're up for it?" Ethan blinked, stunned. "Are you serious?" "Completely," Daniel said, clapping him on the shoulder. "You've got vision, Ethan. Don't sell yourself short." For a moment, Ethan didn't know what to say. Then a grin spread across his face. "All right, let's do it." That night, Ethan drove home with a sense of accomplishment he hadn't felt in years. When he walked through the door, Lily greeted him with a hug. "So, how was your day?" she asked, smiling knowingly. "It was incredible," Ethan admitted, still processing everything. "I think we're finally getting somewhere, Lily. Not just with work, but with life." She nodded, her expression softening. "You deserve it, Dad. You really do." As they sat down to dinner together, Ethan reflected on how far he'd come. From sleeping under a tarp to standing in a courtroom defending his honor, every step had shaped him into the person he was today. And though challenges lay ahead, he knew he wasn't alone anymore. With Lily by his side, Daniel's friendship, and Claire's guidance, he was ready to embrace whatever the future held. For the first time in years, Ethan allowed himself to dream, not just of survival, but of success, happiness, and making a difference. Ethan's promotion to oversee the development of Daniel's new jet model marked a turning point, not just in his career, but in his life. For years he had felt invisible, dismissed by society because of his circumstances. Now, he was leading a team of talented engineers and mechanics designing something revolutionary, a jet that combined cutting-edge technology with sustainable energy solutions. The project was ambitious, pushing boundaries in aviation engineering. Ethan threw himself into the work, collaborating closely with the team to refine every detail. From aerodynamics to fuel efficiency, no aspect was overlooked. He spent long hours at the hangar, brainstorming ideas, testing prototypes, and troubleshooting problems. Despite the pressure, he thrived, finding joy in the creative process and the camaraderie of his colleagues. Daniel visited often, checking on progress and offering encouragement. "You're doing incredible work, Ethan," he said, during one visit. "This jet isn't just about business, it's about changing the industry, and you're at the heart of it." Ethan smiled, feeling a sense of pride he hadn't experienced in years. "Thanks, Daniel. It means a lot coming from you." As the weeks passed, Ethan's confidence grew. He began mentoring younger members of the team, sharing his knowledge and experiences. Many looked up to him, inspired by his journey from homelessness to becoming a leader in the field. His story became a source of motivation, proving that second chances were possible if you worked hard enough. At home, Ethan's relationship with Lily continued to strengthen. They spent more time together, cooking meals, watching movies, or simply talking about their days. One evening, as they sat on the couch flipping through photo albums, Lily paused at a picture of her father when she was a child. You used to take me to air shows, she said, smiling fondly. Do you remember? Ethan chuckled, nodding. Of course I do. You loved planes even back then. That's why I'm not surprised you ended up studying engineering. I guess some things never change, Lily replied, leaning her head against his shoulder. I'm glad we're getting to know each other again, Dad. Really glad. Me, too, sweetheart, Ethan said softly, wrapping an arm around her. We've got a lot of catching up to do. Their bond deepened further when Ethan invited Lily to visit the hangar. She was fascinated by the new jet project, asking questions and offering insights based on what she'd learned in school. Watching her interact with the team filled Ethan with pride and hope for the future. Meanwhile, Claire introduced Ethan to a broader audience through her foundation. She arranged speaking engagements at schools, shelters, and community centers, where he shared his story of resilience and redemption. Each event drew large crowds, eager to hear how he overcame adversity. One particular night stood out. Ethan spoke at a shelter for homeless veterans, many of whom identified with his struggles. As he recounted his lowest moments, the nights spent under tarps, the loneliness, the fear, he saw nods of understanding in the audience. When he talked about rebuilding his life, they leaned forward, hanging on every word. Afterward, several people approached him, thanking him for giving them hope. One man, a former soldier named Greg, shook Ethan's hand firmly. Your story made me realize I'm not alone, Greg said, his voice thick with emotion. Maybe I can turn things around too. Ethan patted his shoulder. You absolutely can. Start small, stay focused, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Trust me, it makes all the difference. Claire watched from the sidelines, beaming with pride. You're making such an impact, Ethan, she told him later. People need to hear stories like yours. They remind us that everyone deserves a second chance. Despite his success, Ethan remained grounded. He volunteered regularly at Claire's foundation, mentoring individuals trying to rebuild their lives. Whether helping someone write a resume, offering advice on job interviews, or simply listening to their struggles, he gave back in ways that mattered most. His humility earned him respect not only within Daniel's company, but also in the wider community. Local newspapers featured articles about him, highlighting his transformation and contributions. Strangers stopped him on the street to thank him for inspiring them to keep going despite their challenges. Even Daniel noticed the change in Ethan. You've come so far, he remarked one day. Not just professionally, but personally. You've grown into someone truly remarkable. Ethan shrugged modestly. I'm just doing my best, Daniel, trying to make a difference where I can. As the jet project neared completion, excitement buzzed through the hangar. The final prototype gleamed under the lights, its sleek design and advanced technology showcasing months of hard work. On the day of the maiden flight, the entire team gathered to watch. Ethan stood near the tarmac, his heart pounding with anticipation. Beside him, Daniel and Lily exchanged nervous smiles. Claire had joined them too, along with a few reporters documenting the historic moment. When the engines roared to life, Ethan felt a surge of emotion. This wasn't just any jet. It represented everything he'd fought for: perseverance, innovation, and second chances. As the plane lifted off the ground, climbing smoothly into the sky, cheers erupted from the crowd. It's perfect, Daniel said, clapping Ethan on the back. Absolutely perfect. Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes as he watched the jet soar higher. He thought about all the obstacles he'd faced and how far he'd come. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to fully embrace the present, to celebrate his achievements without worrying about what might come next. Later that evening, Ethan reflected on the day's events. Sitting on his apartment balcony, he gazed at the stars, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. Life hadn't been easy, but it had taught him valuable lessons about resilience, forgiveness, and the power of kindness. He thought about Lily, now a constant presence in his life, Daniel, who had believed in him when no one else did, and Claire, whose guidance had helped him find his voice. Most importantly, He thought about the countless others still struggling, hoping to find their own path forward. Ethan knew his journey wasn't over. There would always be challenges ahead, but he was ready to face them, with courage, determination, and the unwavering belief that anything was possible. For the first time in years, Ethan felt truly at peace. Months passed since the successful maiden flight of the new jet model. Ethan's life had transformed in ways he never imagined possible. He was no longer just a mechanic or a survivor. He was a leader, an innovator, and a symbol of hope for many. Yet despite his achievements, he remained humble, always remembering where he came from. The jet project earned widespread acclaim, revolutionizing the aviation industry with its groundbreaking design and eco-friendly features. News outlets hailed it as the future of air travel, crediting Ethan's vision and leadership. Orders poured in from airlines and private clients alike, securing Daniel's company's place at the forefront of innovation. For Ethan, the EO, success wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about proving that second chances mattered. Every time someone approached him to thank him for inspiring them, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Whether mentoring struggling individuals through Claire's foundation or sharing his story at public events, Ethan dedicated himself to helping others find their own paths forward. One evening, after a long day at the hangar, Ethan found himself standing on the tarmac with Daniel. The two men often spent quiet moments together after work, reflecting on how far they'd come. Tonight, however, there was something different in the air, a shared understanding that marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. "You?" "No," Daniel said, breaking the silence. "When I first met you that rainy night, I never imagined we'd end up here." Ethan chuckled softly. "Neither did I. If someone had told me back then that I'd be designing jets and speaking at conferences, I wouldn't have believed them." "Well, you've earned every bit of it," Daniel replied warmly. "And not just because of your skills. You've got heart, Ethan. That's what sets you apart." Ethan nodded, glancing at the jet parked nearby. Its polished surface gleamed faintly under the hangar lights, a testament to months of hard work and collaboration. "It feels surreal, doesn't it? All this started with a broken-down plane and a chance encounter. And look where it led," Daniel added, smiling. "You've changed lives, including mine." They stood side by side for a while longer, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. The quiet hum of the airstrip created a peaceful backdrop, allowing both men to reflect on their journeys. In the weeks that followed, Ethan continued balancing his responsibilities at work with his volunteer efforts at Claire's foundation. His schedule was busy, but he thrived on the challenge. Each day brought new opportunities to innovate, to inspire, and to grow. Lily played a significant role in keeping him grounded. Their bond had grown stronger than ever, built on mutual respect and trust. She visited the hangar frequently, fascinated by the ongoing projects and eager to learn from her father's expertise. Together they dreamed of a future where she might join the aviation industry herself. "You've inspired me, Dad," Lily admitted during one of their conversations. "I used to think engineering was just about numbers and equations, but seeing you work, it's so much more than that. It's about solving problems, making a difference." "That's exactly right," Ethan said proudly. "And you'll make an incredible engineer someday. Just don't forget to enjoy the ride along the way." As Ethan's influence grew, so did his circle of friends. One person who entered his life unexpectedly was Samantha, a nurse he met at one of Claire's events. Kind-hearted and down-to-earth, she shared his passion for helping others and quickly became a source of support and companionship. Their relationship developed slowly, built on honesty and shared values. Samantha admired Ethan's resilience and dedication, while he appreciated her warmth and optimism. They spent weekends exploring the city, volunteering together, or simply enjoying quiet evenings at home. "She's good for you," Claire remarked. One day, observing the way Ethan lit up whenever Samantha was around. "I think so too," Ethan admitted, smiling. "She makes everything feel lighter, you know?" Claire nodded knowingly. "Sometimes we need someone to remind us to take a step back and enjoy the little things." "You deserve that, Ethan." Despite his successes, Ethan never forgot the lessons he'd learned during his darkest days. He carried those memories with him, not as burdens, but as reminders of how far he'd come. They fueled his determination to give back, whether through mentoring, volunteering, or simply offering a listening ear to someone in need. One chilly autumn morning, Ethan returned to the shelter where he had once stayed. Walking through its doors felt surreal, like stepping into a past life. This time, however, he wasn't seeking refuge, he was offering it. He spoke to the residents, sharing his story and encouraging them to believe in themselves. "Life will throw challenges your way," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "But if you hold on, if you keep fighting, things can change. Trust me, I've been there." Afterward, several people approached him, thanking him for his words of encouragement. One young man named Marcus lingered behind, hesitant but hopeful. "I want to turn my life around," Marcus confessed, "but I don't even know where to start." Ethan placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Start small. Find something you're passionate about and build from there. And don't be afraid to ask for help. There are people who care and want to see you succeed." Watching Marcus nod thoughtfully, Ethan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Helping others gave his life meaning beyond personal success. As winter approached, Ethan took a rare moment to pause and reflect. Standing on the balcony of his apartment, he gazed at the stars, letting the cool breeze wash over him. So much had changed in such a short time, yet certain truths remained constant. The importance of perseverance, the value of kindness, and the power of second chances. He thought about the homeless man he used to be, the fear, the loneliness, the uncertainty. And he thought about the man he was now, resilient, hopeful, and grateful. While he couldn't erase the hardships he'd endured, he could use them to shape a better future, for himself and for others. Ethan smiled softly, feeling a profound sense of peace. Life hadn't been easy, but it had taught him invaluable lessons. As he looked up at the vast expanse of stars above, he realized something important. Sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness, like repairing a billionaire's jet for free, could set off a chain reaction, transforming not only your own life but the lives of those around you. And with that realization, Ethan stepped back inside, ready to embrace whatever the future held.